Okay, so hello everyone, Jorge, Destiny Partners. This is webinar 0, and this is the first webinar that University of La Laguna has prepared for the rest of the team. And this is a webinar that will be looking at the organization of a Mooc within the Destiny project. So we've got open here in the Google Hangouts a little window so you can ask any questions as we deliver this webinar. But as I've already mentioned to you in several emails, we've also opened up a forum for you to ask questions and leave your comments for us. So obviously I'm good at multitasking, but I would prefer you to make or ask any questions that you have in the forum so that they're all in one place and we can easily answer all of them quickly. So we've shared the screen with you so you can see the presentation and the PowerPoint slides that we've got ready for you. Now, in the first slide that we've got open, you can see that the content of this webinar will be Mooc characteristics, Mooc structure, project management, so the planning and scheduling of the creation of didactic materials for the Mooc. Now, this is perhaps the most important element of this webinar, the project management. We believe that if the project management's done correctly from the beginning, it's going to save a lot of time and a lot of effort. It's going to make everything run very smoothly, and it will require a lot less work for teaching staff and collaborators in the long run. In this webinar, we're also going to look at the development of didactic materials, the sorts of videos we can expect to encounter in Moocs. We're going to look at how to create a video presentation, our recommendations for the audiovisual content, and we're going to be looking at also at the Destiny Project Mooc platform, the Open edX platform, to give you an idea of what to expect from the Destiny Moocs. Obviously, our Destiny Project Moocs will be branded with our logos, but for the time being, until we have the example set up, we are going to use just the platform for today. And then finally, we'll end today's webinar by looking at the launch of the course. So, the objectives of this webinar will be to provide an overview of the work involved in creating Mooc courses, and thus Moocs in the Destiny project. We're going to recommend the structure that we believe would be the best structure for a Mooc to have. We're going to be recommending types of video format. We're looking, as I said already, about project management and the stages of developing a Mooc. And then at the end, you can leave your questions in the forum. The forum can be found on the website that you can see on this slide, so Jorge's website, and you just have to click on Add Comment, leave your name and the comment. So, as we all know, the characteristics of a Mooc are that it's massive, open online courses. So massive, we know that Moocs can reach huge numbers of students. As many as 100,000 students, if not more, can enroll on any given course. So this is obviously going to have an impact on people's willingness to participate in creating Moocs, because a lot of people are worried that with so many students, it's going to involve a lot of work. So we need to reassure collaborators that the work that they're going to have to do to get a Mooc up and running, to participate in a Mooc, is not going to cause them any headaches. Moocs, as we know, they're open, they're free. Students only have to pay for completion certificates, which are optional. So as a team, the Destiny partners are going to have to decide what sort of qualifications people may obtain. Now, I know we've discussed in the Tenerife meeting that we weren't going to be offering any sorts of certificates that were in line with the educational systems of any particular country. So I think we've come to a conclusion on that, but again, it's something we can still talk about. They're online, so they're non-presential. Courses run online during several weeks, and they offer a combination of didactic materials. So primarily this didactic material is in the form of videos, but also additional supporting documents and interactive materials, which we'll look at in this webinar. And something that's very relevant to MOOCs is that the content of the courses has to be very, very interesting. The material has to be able or capable of grabbing students' attention, making them think, making them interested in learning for themselves. So it's all very much about encouraging creative thinking and also networking with other students and autonomous learning. So our recommendations for a MOOC then are, in terms of duration, that it should have a minimum duration of 4 weeks and a maximum of 12 weeks. Now, each module should be equivalent to 1 week's work. And in 1 week, students shouldn't be expected to do more than 3 hours work. Now, this could be in work that is in the form of videos and PDFs, but no more than 3 hours in total. Each week, students will have access to different resources and materials. Modules will be covering different topics each week, and each topic will be broken down into subsections, into easy bite-sized pieces in order to facilitate learning. And those bite-sized pieces will contain audio-visual material, theoretical content, and evaluation activities. Now, teaching staff can decide whether or not to include optional activities. Now, optional activities, which you can see here that I haven't translated from Spanish, but I will. This is activity that is designed to check whether students are assimilating new concepts or not. So the number of optional activities a teacher decides to include will obviously depend on the teacher themselves. Now, the evaluation activities, they can come in 2 forms. The most common types of assessment activities are the online questionnaires. These are automatically corrected by the platform based on the criteria used when they're set up. And then the other form is peer-to-peer correction. Now, peer-to-peer correction will obviously depend on students correcting each other's work, and a set of criteria will need to be provided by the teaching staff so that students can obviously correct the work according to the teacher's criteria and not their own personal criteria. Each module, as I said, can be evaluated in different ways. So I've mentioned questionnaires already. I've mentioned peer-to-peer correction, but then sometimes questionnaires or peer-to-peer correction just aren't necessary. So at times teachers may want to revert to the use of surveys. Now, teachers may use surveys to obtain data when questionnaires are not relevant. So the completion of the survey will allow the student to continue to the next module. In a MOOC, we must also include communication tools. Now, teaching staff can create forums, they can create wikis or blogs, or they can use emails to communicate directly with students as a group or individually. But the most useful tool and the most commonly used tool is the forum. Once the course has been set up and designed, and once everything has been decided by teaching staff, once we know what the course is going to be about, and once we've established the content, then it's very important as well to include a presentation video, a course presentation video. This will be the video that's used to capture new participants and new students for the course. So this is normally done at the end, much like the abstract of a paper, once you know the content. Now, the teacher will obviously have to be familiar with the different management tools of a MOOC and the platform, because the teacher will be responsible for adding or removing content and managing everything that they want to include in their module. Now, at this stage in this webinar, we're not going to go into those in detail. So we're going to be offering another webinar that will go into the training needed for using Open edX and the platform. So with all of this in mind, we would like to show you an example of a MOOC, just to give you a visual reference of everything that we've just mentioned. Now, we're going to go to the Open edX platform. And in the Open edX platform, which you can see here, you can see what I've just mentioned. So you can see here on the left-hand side how the Mooc itself has been divided into weeks. So 1 week is equivalent to 1 module. And if we look at week 1, we can see that module 1 and the subject of module 1 has been broken down into subtopics. Now, the way that Open edX is designed, if you click on week 1 and the topic that the student wants to study, then you will have here a navigation bar at the top, which the student can use to select either text documents or discussions or bar charts or videos, etc. So the student will be expected to progress through the course in the order that these appear. So the teacher must be aware that when they're collaborating with the creation of MOOCs in this platform, that they must upload the content to the platform in the order that they want it to be here in this bar, because this will be the order in which students are expected to follow the content. Now, another piece of information that's worth mentioning is we can see here a video that's been uploaded. So this is an example of video content in a PowerPoint presentation. And you'll see here, just to the right of that video, a transcript of the video. Now, this is something very important. Teachers must be aware that they'll be expected to provide transcriptions of the video and audio content for the hard of hearing. Down below, you'll see a discussion that can be opened or activated or deactivated. That will depend on the teacher and the settings and the configuration that they choose. And then up here we can see that they've chosen to include a wiki, they've chosen to include frequently asked questions, and then here the student can click and view their progress and see what they've actually completed in the course. So that's just a quick look at the layout of a MOOC in the Open edX platform. So as you can see here, the course hasn't been completed, and there's more information and more data broken down by module. So that's just a quick look. Let's go back to the presentation. And if we look at the next slide, you'll see the best practice recommendations for each module. So this is something that teaching staff will have to be aware of, and the Destiny partners will have to be aware of. As we've said, there should be no more than 3 hours workload per week for a module. In terms of the MOOC overall, there should be a minimum of 4 weeks or 4 modules on offer and a maximum of 12. And the frequency of each module is 1 module per week. If we have a look at the audio-visual content for each module or each week, there should be no less than 30 minutes of video in each module and no more than 60 minutes of video per module. But what we cannot do is we cannot offer a 30-minute video. Videos and presentations must be broken down into easy bite-sized chunks. They should last no less than 3 minutes and no more than 12 minutes. Now, the reason the maximum duration is set at 12 minutes is because people's attention spans switch off at the 15-minute mark. People get distracted, they lose interest, so they must be under 12 minutes. Now, for every 30 minutes of video that's offered in a module, approximately 2 additional resources should be offered. So 2 additional PDFs or Word documents or activities that offer supporting theory. If we look at the evaluation, now this is the part that the Destiny partners will have to discuss in a lot more detail, how we're going to carry out the evaluations. This will obviously be based on discussions with the teaching staff who are helping us to build the MOOCs. Now, the evaluation, a lot of courses like to establish students' prior knowledge before completing the final evaluation at the end of the course. However, some teaching staff want to establish students' prior knowledge at the beginning of their module and upon completion of their module. So there's 2 assessments used per module. So we have to discuss, how we're going to offer evaluation in the Destiny MOOCs and try and create some kind of consistency. Then, in terms of best practice, you should always offer some kind of community and communication tool for students. So, as I said before, forums are most commonly used, but it's important to remember the forums aren't going to increase the workload for the teaching staff. Now, the teaching staff are not expected to participate in the forums. The forums are there so that students work with other students, so that they learn autonomously, so that they debate things and resolve their own problems. So in addition to the forum, teaching staff can also set up wikis. They can also set up blogs. They might send students to their own personal blog as experts. And generally speaking, MOOCs will also offer a resource library and some kind of emailing system or direct communication tool in the event of technical problems or specific questions that other students are unable to answer. So if we move on to the next slide then, let's take a look in a little bit more detail at the content of a module and the video that we'll find in a MOOC. Now, there are 3 types of video format that are typically seen in MOOCs. The first one is polymedia. Now, this gives a very professional video, but one of the main complications with producing this type of video is that you will have to work with the audiovisual department at your local university. Now, not all of the partners have access to an audiovisual department at their university, but if they do, and if they did want to use this type of format, the University of La Laguna will be more than happy to provide information on the sorts of infrastructure that you will need to film this type of video, what sort of materials you'll need, and also the techniques that need to be used. And if you want to, you can click on the link below that will take you to some examples of these videos. But what is typical in these videos is that teaching staff will be presenting their presentation so that students will be able to see the teacher and the presentation at the same time. However, this is kind of becoming a little bit old-fashioned in MOOCs. People are using this format less and less, and they're actually moving to the next type of video format that I'd like to discuss. Now, the video tutorial is becoming more and more popular in MOOCs. And the reason for that is because it's able to give very professional results and no prior video editing experience is required. It's something that's very easy to pick up. There's also no additional costs or very, very minor additional costs. And in this format, as you can see from the screenshot, the teacher who is giving the presentation is either going to appear in the screen along with their presentation, or they can decide in the settings not to appear and just have their voice accompanying the PowerPoint presentation. Again, we've provided a link to some examples of this type of format so you can have a look at it. Now, something that you should bear in mind with this type of format is that it's not going to offer necessarily the same professional quality as this 3rd type of video format. Now, the 3rd type of video format, the conference style, is something that we see quite often at universities. But as in the first video format, this requires assistance from the university technical support team, and it requires special video mixing equipment. And it's something that's only available if your local university has an audiovisual services department that's able to assist you with this project. So what are the benefits of this 3rd video format, the one where we can switch between the PowerPoint presentation and the speaker and back and forth as many times as we want? Well, obviously, we have a professional outcome, and the video is being recorded by a technician, so the teacher only has to give their presentation. They can forget about or not worry about editing the video in any way. That's all done by the technical services department. And it's a service that BitJam, EVM, Sentiment, and Caddis should be able to use with the support of the university partners if this service exists at your university. So this would be our recommendation. The third option would be our recommendation. But if option 3 isn't available at your university, or if they're overbooked and don't have time to help you for whatever reason, then our recommendation would be that all partners use option 2 that we've presented. Now, option 2 can be created using the software called Camtasia Studio Software, and we provided a link to that software for you here on this slide. It costs about 70 euros, but the university has a license that we're willing to share with the other partners, so actually it's going to be free. This software really is very easy to pick up. Now, in this webinar, we're not going to go into the details of how to use this software. We just don't have time. But in the next webinar, we will. We'll give Destiny partners a chance to ask questions, learn how to use this software, ask questions about how to use it, because the advantages of using Camtasia are quite significant. Teaching staff can create their own audiovisual content and presentations, no matter where they are, whether they're on holiday or not. You know, it gives teaching staff and collaborators huge flexibility. It doesn't require any expensive equipment or infrastructure. It can be done on pretty much any computer, anywhere. So the only disadvantage, although it's not a huge disadvantage, is training would have to be offered to collaborators and to teaching staff, and that training will have to be offered either by the University of La Laguna or by the Destiny partners. So we believe it's our responsibility as project managers, so it's the responsibility of all the Destiny partners to understand how this tool works if we're going to use it, so that we can offer training on how to use it to our local collaborators. Now, this brings us then to the project management aspect of creating a Mooc. Now, as I said at the beginning of this webinar, if project management runs smoothly, if we are all using the same project management system for the creation of didactic materials, then everything will run very smoothly and it will create a lot less work in the long run. So we have created a shared folder on Google Drive, but you can create it on Dropbox as well if you want. And this is a folder that contains the folders that you will need to correctly manage the creation of a Mooc. So let's have a look quickly at the folder in Google Drive. It's a folder that contains, or that's going to contain, the audiovisual content for the Mooc, the PowerPoint presentations for the Mooc, the activities for the Mooc, the supporting activities and questionnaires, and so on. Okay, it's essentially the folders where you are going to collate all of the materials that have been prepared for the Mooc as the project manager, but the teaching staff will be the ones who are responsible for uploading the content into these shared folders. So this is a folder system that the Destiny partners will manage, but teaching staff will be responsible for using it and uploading to it. So let's take a look then. So here you can see the folders. This is just a screenshot, but let's actually go to the folder itself. So we can see here the different folders. So folder number 1 is Sheet Course. Now this is the first document that you need to access as a project manager. Inside Sheet Course folder, you'll see a document entitled Course Content Overview. So let's open that up. Now, Course Content Overview is the master document that essentially describes the Mooc in detail. So the objectives of the Mooc, the competencies that are going to be improved. This information we use to create the presentation video for the course. But the most important element is the subjects and contents. Now, this is crucial to the project manager. The project manager needs to ensure that teaching staff have provided here the materials that they're going to be using in their module. So the videos they're going to be using, the PowerPoint presentations they're going to be using. I'm going to open up the other document, which is an example of this. And so teaching staff are going to be, for example, in Module 0, the introduction, indicating that transversal competencies, they'll be using one video, that for the subsection work in the tourism sector, they'll be providing one video. In the third subsection, they're providing a PDF for people to read, which is an article, and so on. So as you can see, it's really a comprehensive list of what the teachers are going to be including in their module. Okay. The reason we need this information is because it's going to help us, if we go back to the drive, it's going to help us to complete the time schedule and the planning documents, the Excel documents that we've got here. So after you've completed the document that you can find in Sheet Course, you're going to need to complete the time schedule together with the teaching staff. The time schedule is obviously the planning of when you are going to create the content that they've told you that they want to add to their module. So as you can see here, you've got an Excel file that's broken down by months. So we've just given an example of a 4-month Mooc, so which is the minimum, and it's broken down into week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4. And here you can see when you've got to create the content for, or the content, the materials and activities for week 1 and week 2. This is for modules 1 to 3. The PowerPoints will need to be created here in week 2 and week 3. And then the video recordings for modules 1 to 3 will need to take place in weeks 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. So this is all related to gathering and collating together the materials for the Mooc into the Google Drive folders. Okay. So once you've completed those two documents, the document in Sheet Course and the time schedule, you will then be able to complete the planning Mooc. Now this is just for the project manager. This is a very visual reference of what you are going to be including in each module. So here again, we've by default included a Mooc that lasts for 12 weeks, and we have just put in a different quantity of materials. So we put in 8, but there might be more in your Mooc, there might be less. So this is just to provide an example. So obviously 4 weeks or 4 modules are the minimums, which is why it's obligatory. And then beyond that, your Mooc might have 5 weeks, 6 weeks, 7 weeks, and so on. But as you can see, in week 1, we have got a PowerPoint, which is the introduction to Module 1. We've got a video, which is an introduction to Module 1. So you'll probably see that in all of the weeks. We've also got a PowerPoint presentation, another video, a questionnaire, and a non-compulsory activity. So this is something that you're going to use to check that teachers are uploading the content into these folders, folders 2 and folders 3. So folders 2 and folders 3 are where you'll find the video content and the PowerPoint presentations broken down into weeks. So if we look at week 1, you see there's nothing here. If there's nothing here and the deadline and the planning tells you there should be something there, then you know to send a polite email to the teaching staff to remind them that you're expecting some content. Okay, so if we go back again, you can see by default we've provided 12 folders, just in case the Moocs last 12 weeks, but yours may last less. And here, activities, again, it's the same as folder 2. This is a week-by-week breakdown. And as you can see here in activities, you've actually got 3 folders. You've got one for peer-to-peer activities, one for questionnaires, one for supporting materials. But obviously, to be able to know what activities will be taking place each week, teachers are going to have to inform you of this. So we've provided the Destiny Project partners and also teaching staff who'll be collaborating with you with some templates here in folder 4. Now the templates are obviously for the activities that we've just seen in that folder. So we've got a template for activities. So if we open that up now, here the teaching staff will have to tell you which module the activity is for, so it goes into the correct folder, but they will have to put it into that folder, but just to help you check. They'll have to tell you whether it's a compulsory or obligatory activity for students or not, the start date and the end date. Obviously, this will be decided once we know when the Mooc will be running, but it has to be confirmed on the platform itself. All of this is information that has to be confirmed on the platform. This document is just to have a copy in the Google Drive folder in the case of some kind of problem, and so that the project manager knows what was expected. And then here, a description of the activity. So this is all something that the teaching staff will create. So I'll close that. And again, the same for peer-to-peer activity. Here's the template. Teaching staff will have to fill in. Now, obviously, in a peer-to-peer activity, students are going to have to be informed of the criteria the teacher expects them to use to correct the activities. So the teacher will explain to students here the evaluation criteria, and that's the information the students will receive from the platform. And again, here they have to indicate the module, whether it's a compulsory activity or not, the start and end date, etc. Here is a template for the questionnaire, just to show you what to expect. So we've got which module it is, sample. And we have provided a sample of this one for you, just to help you to see it a bit more clearly. So the module number, the questionnaire number, whether it's compulsory or not, this will all be on the platform. But here you'll have the question, this is the correct answer, this is not the correct answer, and this is the message the student will receive if it's correct, and this is the message the student will receive if they haven't provided the correct answer. So if we go back to the Google Drive folders then, these are the templates the teachers will need to fill in, and then this is the last one for you, whether any supporting materials needed, whether any PDFs are needed, what wikis they want to use. This is literally anything and everything that they might be thinking of using for their module. Okay, and again, that will go in the corresponding folder. So if we go back to the folders, the templates will be filled in and then put into this corresponding week. So if we open that up, as yet, nothing has been entered. Here, in other documents, the project manager can use this folder to provide additional information to teaching staff. So a list of criteria, a list of, or some presentations like the webinar today, so they know what's expected of them. And here, in Destiny Project Organizing a Mooc folder, we've provided for you a PowerPoint presentation that goes into exactly what I've just mentioned, but in a bit more detail. So a bit more detail about the folders and how they're organized, just in case you didn't catch it first time round in this webinar. So it really is a very clear-cut explanation of what's in each folder. And then towards the end, I've broken things down into a step-by-step process for you. So what you should do first, what you should do second, and so on. Okay, so that's a reference for the Destiny partners, just to help them understand the Google Drive folders a little bit more clearly. And then here, a guideline document. This is a document that you saw as an appendix to the last minutes that Rosemary sent out. So again, it's a folder that you can use for anything and everything that you find useful as a project manager to share with other people. So that is the Google Drive folder. Now, if we go back to the presentation, the edX platform that we've shown you today is a good example of what the Destiny Project MOOCs will look like, although, as I've said, they will include our branding. And we hope to have an example of a Destiny MOOC on the platform for your review by February, you know, in time for the next webinar to offer further training on the platform and how to use it. So we'd just like to touch then on the didactic material again and the creation of videos and some things that we need to keep in mind. So just to reiterate for you, our first choice is for partners, all partners, to use the audiovisual service at the local university. So in the case of La Laguna, we would offer EVM access to this service, but again, we recognise that perhaps not all partners have an audiovisual service at the university, and if they do, it's not always going to be available to them. So our second choice, and perhaps the most useful choice for this project at this given time, would be for all partners to use consistently the Camtasia software. So this is a link for you to click on to download the software. And if you want to, you can also access a webinar, so you can actually learn how to use the software, watch some tutorials. And we would recommend that over the Christmas season, before the next webinar, which will involve training on how to create a Mooc, that all partners become familiar with this software and how to use it, that they watch as many tutorials as possible, but it really is very straightforward. Now, other options, just for your information, that are out there, we've also got Screencast-O-Matic. This is an online tool that you can use to create video presentations and audiovisual content for a Mooc. And there's also the Explain Everything app for the iPad. Now, for the first two, Screencast-O-Matic and Camtasia, you're going to need obviously a PC, a webcam, a microphone to create your video content. But for the Explain Everything iPad app, you're not going to need these things because they're already built into the iPad itself. Now, obviously, teaching staff need to create additional didactic material to accompany these videos, but they can incorporate that very easily using Camtasia. It's very self-explanatory. But they will have to be aware that they need to provide transcripts so that they can help the hard of hearing. Now, I've already mentioned this before, once the course has been project managed successfully, once all of the content is in the Google Drive folders, once we are ready to launch, then this is the stage we need to think about creating a course presentation video. So the video has to be very creative, it has to be very professional, it has to capture the interest and attention of potential participants. And so it should include the course objectives, the course content, an explanation of types of activities to be found in the course, how long the course is going to last, and the types of accreditation available, whether it's available or not. Now, Destiny partners can make recommendations about what they think should be included in this video as well, if they've got any ideas or comments they want to add. These are just some suggestions, but it's obviously not exhaustive, not an exhaustive list. So, once the video presentation has been made, and once the course has been launched on the platform, what will we be asking teaching staff to do? Well, we'll be asking teaching staff to log in on a daily basis during their module, not for all modules, just for the module that they are the teachers on. And the reason we're asking them to log into their module on a daily basis is just to check that there are no technical problems. We as project managers for the Destiny project can also log in on a daily basis to check for technical issues, if the website's gone, if the platform's gone down for any reason or whatever, and also to check if a student sent an email to them. Now, obviously, we're very concerned about encouraging the participation of teaching staff. So it's very important to remind teaching staff that if the platform is configured correctly by them and by the project manager, from the start, if all of the materials correctly uploaded to the Google Drives from the start, if all of the instructions are given correctly from the start, then the platform will do the rest. It won't, once it's launched, the Mooc won't require them to do any more work. It won't require them to participate in forums or debates unless they want to. So teaching staff then have to be reminded that they participate as much as they want. They participate to clarify students' doubts if they want, either individually or they can respond to students as a group. But they also need to be reminded the idea is students are there to resolve their own questions. They're there to learn how to become autonomous learners. So this should emphasize that participating in the Moocs should not greatly increase their teaching workload once launched, but it will increase their brownie points for, participating in a project like this. So that brings us to the end of this webinar, Webinar 0. We'd like to thank you very much for your time. And now that we've reached the end of the webinar, we're going to go back to Skype, and Rosemary will be starting a Skype phone call just to check whether anyone's got any questions or any comments they want to make now. But as we've said at the beginning, we are obviously waiting for your comments and questions on the forum. So thank you very much for your time, and happy Christmas.